Hello and welcome back to Natix Rainmakers Laboratory, Module 2.2, Goal Setting and Time Management. Hopefully you're through most of the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and now you can start building on those concepts into our meat of the module here, Goal Setting and Time Management. So let's get to it. Now we've already talked a little bit about, we've talked a lot about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So that was the module 2.1. As we get into module 2.2, we're going to see how far we get before we break this thing down into the next the next little mini module here. So we're going to be talking about SMART goals, goal setting, production dynamics, time management, milk routes, call routes, and then finally, you guessed it, homework assignments. So hopefully, like I said before, you're through most of the book with 7 habits. This is one that you're going to continue to read over and over, and I encourage you guys to go ahead and do that. But let's get started here on SMART goals. So first off, show of hands, who knows what a SMART goal is? So SMART is obviously an acronym, as opposed to being intelligent. SMART goals stand for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. So what do we mean when we say a goal has to be specific? Well, first off, a goal that cannot be specifically identified is just a good idea. For example, if you decide, hey, I want to increase my orders this month, well, that's a good idea or a good concept. A goal to increase orders 10% per month clearly states what's expected, and that's what we're after here, guys. You can't just say, oh, you know what, I want to lose weight. That's not a goal, that's just a good idea. Another drill down, I want to get healthy next year. Well, that's great. You can say, well, I'm going to get healthy by losing weight. Yeah, that's a little bit more specific, but it's not as specific as I want to lose 10 pounds or I want to lose 25 pounds. I mean, whatever that number is, it has to have some type of number attached to it. Hopefully that one makes sense to you guys. When we talk about measurable, the measurable component to a SMART goal, goals need to have exact measures. This will keep a clear understanding between you and your manager. It will help you see if you're producing above or below expected levels. I can tell you some of the most uncomfortable performance reviews I've been both administering and receiving is when goals weren't defined, they weren't measured. It was one of those things where you walked into it. It's almost felt like you were walking into an ambush to say that, hey, I did increase my order count or I did improve this number, but it wasn't the number that the other person had in mind. So when you talk about that, be able to clearly have some type of metric attached to a goal. Another really cool theory that a manager that I absolutely hated talked about that what we measure will improve. If you can't track it, it's not going to improve, it's not going to improve long term. So as we're going through these things, making sure that you have metrics available to you is going to be huge as part of this. So if you don't currently track the number, anything, at the end of the day, if you want to break this thing into, once again, daily business, tracking the number of orders on a daily basis, that's a really good start. Making sure you're able to tell where those orders come from. Some of you may laugh, and some of you may be saying, Eureka, holy cow, what a cool idea to know where my business is coming from on a daily basis. Those are some of the things we're talking about when we talk about measurable. Now, when you talk about attainable, this is a whole other concept. You need to have the ability to say, hey, Mr. Manager, hey, Mr. Owner, I can't do 500 orders next month if I did 10 the month before. It's not realistic, or it's not, that's just, no one has done 500 orders before, so what makes you think I can do it in a month? Good communication leads to this stuff. This is kind of circling back even to the 7 habits when we talked about, being able to seek first to understand and then be understood. You've got to be able to have that back and forth. Poor communication will lead to frustration on both sides. Now, another cool tip for you guys, try to limit your goals to 5 or less. Now, the reason why I say that is I think psychologists will say that the human mind can can manage about 7 different things. And I want to shoot below that. So I use the concept a lot of a big 5 inside my team. So if you've been around me, you know what a lunatic I can be in regards to big 5 this and big 5 that. In establishing these big 5 goals, try to use the 80-20 principle. The idea behind this is that you want to look at what 20% of the goals you can achieve that'll give you 80% of that result. And that's how you front load your big 5 goals. Look at the ones that can make the biggest impact and make that your number 1 goal. The one that can improve something the least of the big 5, that's obviously goal number 5. Moving forward, we get into realistic. Now, a goal needs to be in your control. We've already talked about that. A goal to increase the average revenue per transaction isn't a realistic goal because you really can't control that. Now, you'll see in the next point, you can to a certain degree, but for the most part, you can only control the number of orders that come through the door. You can't control, I need to work $1 million deals. Well, that would be great. And that's kind of where I talk about it here in this next point. The size of the loan for a specific client is really out of your control. A better goal would be to focus on the clients that can produce the larger loan size. Maybe you need to be marketing into a different part of the city or a different area altogether where there are higher dollar amounts. Those would be, once again, specific, measurable. You can go in and focus a specific area. So finally, goals have to be time sensitive. And goals need to have time constraints attached to them. This also helps spell out expectations. So when you're going through this and say, I want you to get to 500 orders, well, okay, let's make sure that the time sensitivity piece, or how long do I have to get there, can play a huge factor in that. An agreed upon goal can have all other aspects that we've listed, but if you don't have this, if you don't have the time component attached to this thing, you're going to run into trouble. So I covered those pretty fast. So if you need to rewind that a little bit, feel free to go ahead. As we go and move forward past SMART goals, getting into goal setting, this is really where the rubber hits the road here, guys. So as we move through this thing, like I said, that one manager that I absolutely hated, what we measure and track will improve. Whether we're talking about orders, revenue, weight loss, whatever. Life lesson number 2 for you guys. Do yourself a favor. Set your own goals. Now, a lot of you guys are saying, hey, wait a second, my manager gives me my goals and that's what they are and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, okay, your wife, your boss, your teacher, mother, whoever may have a pretty good idea, but you've got to set your own number. The key here is just make sure that your number is higher than theirs. If you're going to use the number, say your manager gives you a number of 100 orders per month, the idea behind it then has to be, okay, so maybe my number needs to be 120, my personal number. So the idea behind it is when you hit your goal, it should be a big deal. Now we can talk a little bit about managing up or across or down with your numbers. So here's what I mean by that. When you talk about managing up, the idea behind this is that you manage up to your boss. You can manage across to your fellow coworkers. So if you're a salesperson managing across to title or over to escrow, that could be managing across and figuring out your relationship and how you communicate goals, and your general communication is going to be different from managing up to your boss versus managing across to a coworker. Also, if you were a manager, managing down to your people, that's a whole nother message or a whole nother way to deliver things back. So if you're talking about kind of that middle manager, they have to manage all 3 directions, up, across, and down. If you're a line salesperson, I'm not going to say just a line salesperson because that's super important. So if you're just managing across or down to your customers, Those could be all different ways to approach things. So the concept of moonshot thinking, this is a really, this is a great video that I was able to snag again off YouTube. So just like some of these other ones, video quality starts off a little shaky, but it finishes pretty strong. It's actually narrated by Peter Diamandis, who actually founded the X Project. And it was originally designed to have this $1 million prize to commercialize space. So this was launching a whole nother space race where it was private corporations were competing to get the first commercialized space flight. And his video talks about, it's kind of one of those motivational things, but the idea behind this is it puts you in the right mindset for goal setting. So I wanted to give this one a listen. I think you're going to really enjoy this one.
The actual moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involved great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together. But think about the Polynesian islander on the dugout canoe, deciding one day they were going to go that way. No one had ever been that way before. No one even knew if there was anything that way before. It was amazing, and it changed the world.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology, bring them to reality. And that then sets other people on fire, that other things that look impossible might be accomplishable.
Galileo is such a hero, in thinking big, and what he represents to me is both curiosity and wonder that humanity had, that pushed him and drove himself to invent and work on the first telescopes that allowed us to see the moon, and here we are.
These aviation pioneers were figuring it out as they went. No one really knew how to build an airplane, right? No one knew how to fly an airplane. It was amazing and crazy and wonderful, and they wanted to explore.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there.
There's so many challenges in the world, and you can feel daunted by that, and sort of oppressed by that, or you kind of say, how might we think differently about this?
Everyone else in the world is working on the next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car a little bit. But if I tell you it has to run on a gallon of gas for 500 miles, you have to start over.
You need a lot of courage in this work, and you need a lot of persistence. One of the things that's really critical is not only having the courage to keep trying every day or thinking big, even if you don't really 100% believe it's possible, like you might think this might be possible. Have the courage to try. That's how the greatest things have happened.
You don't spend your time being bothered that you can't teleport from here to Japan, because there's a part of you that thinks it's impossible. Moonshot thinking is choosing to be bothered by that.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Humanity's progress has been a series of amazing, audacious things, from the very small and personal up to the great, big, and grand. And we are a species of moonshots. And to me, that's like the really amazing, poetic, and inspirational thing.
I think our ambitions are a glass ceiling on what we can accomplish.
When you find your passion, you're unstoppable. You make amazing things happen. It's been true through all of history.
I believe in the human spirit, and I believe that there are always going to be crazy people who will get out of bed one morning and say, you know what, I think I can build a space element, and let's go and do it. But I think that if we become afraid to take these great big risks, we stop inspiring people, we stop achieving things. And the biggest nightmare scenario is that we won't have what it takes to solve the really big challenges.
When Kennedy said that we would put a man on the moon, it's about the fact that he said we don't know how to do this yet, and we're gonna do it anyway. And that sends chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what couldn't we do?
Boy, really cool stuff. We're going to call it here for the day, so thank you guys very much. Completed that one. We'll start up with 2.3 next. Thanks. Have a great rest of the day. Keep going on that book if you haven't gotten there. We'll talk to you soon.